All right, welcome back to the Powers on Sports podcast. You just heard from Roy Cummings. We did some NFL previews, some storylines heading into week 4, and obviously the epic Buccaneer Patriot matchup. And now we're going to hit the college circuit with Vince Ferrara. Vince is from 99.1, the sports animal in Knoxville, Tennessee. Vince is going to we're going to talk lots of SEC football. We're going to hit a couple topics around the country. And Vince is part of the Vols Network. He hosts on 99.1, the sports animal, does lots of content, video content work, and covers all things Tennessee and the SEC. So welcome back to the podcast, Vince.
I appreciate it. Great to be on with you, Jason.
Awesome, man. Awesome. First of all, how's the high school football season going up there for you?
Man, it's flying by. It happens every year. You know, you anticipate and you're like, oh, man, when's this going to start? And when it gets here, it is absolutely downhill on a slide, but it's a lot of fun. We've had some crazy games down to the wire. The level of high school football here has really picked up in the state. Definitely in Nashville with the explosion of population there, but it's increased. There's more of those FBS kind of guys that are in this area too. So been a lot of fun, really competitive games. The former Tennessee offensive line coach, Don Mahoney, who is here under Butch Jones. He is my color analyst. He's awesome. And then just absolutely has a passion for it. So all those are podcasted on our website, 991 The Sports Animal. .com. Just look for the shows tab, high school football, and they're all in there commercial free podcasted. Our family of stations, we do 4 games a week. So pretty awesome, going well.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. All right, let's get to the SEC. I want to hit some SEC topics, then we'll hit a couple national topics.
Okay.
It is the Saban Kiffin Bowl this week in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. The first meeting between the two coaches since, Lane Kiffin was dumped right before the national championship game a few years back. Just your thoughts on Kiffin coming to Tuscaloosa with a pretty good team, got a really good quarterback and Matt Corral. How do you see this matchup in Tuscaloosa Saturday?
Boy, this is going to be so much fun. I mean, obviously the Lane Kiffin storyline there, and loved on the Manning cast with Peyton and Eli. And they had Nick Saban on there, and Eli's getting information from Saban that he posed like he was getting it as an informant for Lane Kiffin. I mean, all that stuff. That Manning cast has just been absolute gold, as you probably already talked about. But man, it's just it's so cool to see this matchup. Lane Kiffin is a guy that Tennessee fans wanted before the Josh Heupel hire. Hugh Freeze is another one with Ole Miss ties that Tennessee fans wanted. But Kiffin once was the most hated guy. Now, I think with his personality, how fun his teams are, and then they're actually winning. I think he's really turned a lot of people's opinion around on him. And the key for them this year, Jason, is they have improved their defense.
Yeah.
And that they were awful last year, and that was something that he didn't shy away from. But they at least have they're competitive now. A big part of that is Chance Campbell, who is a transfer that came in from Maryland, and he knows what to do. He handles their calls. He's been huge for them, but they've improved on a lot of layers. A guy that Tennessee had a commitment from, and Lakia Henry at one point, he's one of their starting outside linebackers. So they've improved enough on that side of the ball to where with that offense, and who I think is the best quarterback in the country, and Matt Corral.
Wow.
This is a legit threat, not only for Alabama in this game, but in the SEC West. I don't often do this during the regular season because it is such usually easy money to pick Alabama.
Right.
But I think I'm going with Ole Miss in the upset.
Wow.
And here's another thing. Obviously, Alabama had the close win against Florida, and everyone criticized them. I was not fazed at all about Alabama. I still think they're the best team. I still think they're going to win it all. But even when they do that, they don't always win all of their games.
Right.
So I think with Ole Miss's offense that they bring to the table, Kiffin's familiarity with them, And the fact that Bryce Young is still a little bit young, and then Alabama, I think they're going to be a good rushing team before the year is up, but that's something that they haven't been able to do consistently enough. And look, the running game may go out the window in this game if it's just an absolute shootout in the 50s.
First one to 50 wins. First one to 50.
There you go. I'd sign up, keep going if we want, because I think this game is going to be that much fun. But I think that's where it could be a little bit more difficult for Alabama, is not having that balance and putting all that on Bryce Young right out of the gate. And Ole Miss is so very balanced. Just terrific skill players that can run the ball, underrated at running the ball. Matt Corral brings you the running and the throwing. I just think it's the perfect time for Ole Miss. And here's another thing: when Alabama loses during the regular season, if they lose that one game every once in a while, it's at home.
Yeah,
it's not on the road.
You're right.
So I think all those, the perfect storm, all those things fall into place. I'm not saying Ole Miss is going to win the West in the conference, but man, this changes the dynamic of the entire SEC season. I like Ole Miss in the upset in a fun shootout.
Nice. I like that. And remember, Ole Miss is coming off a bye week too, so they've had 2 weeks to get ready. Not that Alabama had a tough game last week with Southern Miss, but you had to play. And Bama's a little nicked up at running back. Brian Robinson for them is questionable. They've had a couple of defensive injuries with a couple of their pretty good defensive players. So, and they've been, and like you said, the Florida game showed that they're a little vulnerable on defense. And again, Matt Corral, the offensive play calling of Lane Kiffin, the familiarity. You're right. It sets up for a very good game Saturday afternoon in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, and obviously beautiful atmosphere there. It's going to be so much fun. And I just think that the off week before is a great point for them. And not only for the rest of the players, because they only had a couple of weeks beforehand. So it's not a massive deal like those open weeks late in the year. But it gives Lane Kiffin more time to get in that science lab and figure some stuff out. So, like I said, I didn't overreact to that Florida game, because that team always gets better as the year goes on.
Right.
I just think sort of the stars align, and Lane Kiffin, I think, that may be the third. I do think Ole Miss is the third best team in the SEC, right there with Florida. I think it's Ole Miss and Florida 3 and 4, obviously Alabama and Georgia 1 and 2, but that doesn't mean that in this situation that Ole Miss can't win, and I'm going with them.
There you go. I like that. I like that call. Let's head to Fayetteville. Huge win for Sam Pittman and the Razorbacks. I mean, this team has kind of come from nowhere. Not that we didn't think they had some good players, but nobody thought they'd be number 8 in the country heading to Georgia this week. What a win for the Arkansas program in Dallas, beating Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies. What a rise for Sam Pittman. Just kind of an old school way of doing it, kind of the old school Nick Saban I formation. Obviously, they play spread and they got a good, but the ascension of the defense, KJ Jefferson at quarterback, and just the physical play that Arkansas is showing. What a job by Sam Pittman so far.
Oh, that entire coaching staff is good as it gets right now in the way they've gotten the most out of that roster. That is not a 5-star littered roster. They have some 4 stars here and there, but you go back and look at their recruiting rankings. They don't have the best of the best in terms of high school talent, but man, they are coaching the heck out of that team, from the way they're motivated and how hard they play. Look at them on defense, the way they swarm to the football. They're fast and they hit you hard. They play with physicality. Barry Odom has done an unreal job with that defense and their coverages. Barry Odom, obviously had some success at Mizzou.
The former Missouri head coach. Missouri head coach.
Yep. But man, his strength is being a witch as a defensive coordinator. And we are seeing that. Just the way they've impacted them. The biggest thing for me is how hard they play, how hard they hit you. So that's been so impressive. And you mentioned on offense, they do have an old school physicality to them, but Kendall Briles, he's still getting them into modern types of formations in football.
Right.
Things that some NFL coordinators can't figure out. Like you might want to motion a guy here and there so
Right.
you can help dictate some coverage for your quarterback, just different things like that. And they're blending some of those modern traits of offense to help from a scheme standpoint and beating defenses while still playing physical, balanced football. Again, good skill players. And then any of these teams that are having success right now, you got to have QB1. And KJ Jefferson has done a really nice job. That was a question mark. Saw
Yep.
potential in him. He won the quarterback gig, and he's done a nice job. Now, who knows on his health?
Right.
That's something that could we'll see how it plays out. But man, they're playing really, really well. And Sam Pittman, he's been here at Tennessee as well. And obviously he's going back to Georgia where he had so much
Right.
success
Right.
as a O-line coach. He's just really likable, and he started as a coach going into a COVID year. I mean, you thought any of these first year coaches going into 2020, how in the world when you can't work with all your players during all this, and how is that going to work? And then everyone's saying the schedule with Arkansas, they still were really competitive last year, had a bunch
And
of close losses. And now they're undefeated going to Georgia. They're worthy of their ranking based
yep.
on who they've beaten, a win over
Yep.
Texas, and then last week against
A&M.
A&M. Yeah, and that didn't surprise me, honestly. Couple things. One, the quarterback play at A&M is
Right.
not what it was
Right.
supposed to be, but Arkansas's physicality was something that I thought could give A&M some problems at the line of scrimmage. So I don't think they're going to win this game, but man, I think this will be probably a closer
I
game
agree.
than the points. But in that schedule will take its toll on
It will.
Arkansas eventually. And maybe it'll start this week, but man, that's legit what they're getting out of that roster in Fayetteville.
Two things. Nobody had ever heard of Sam Pittman when he got hired. He was probably the fourth or fifth candidate,
Yeah.
honestly, for the job in Arkansas. Again, nobody had ever really heard of him. They knew he was a good offensive line coach and all that, but as far as being a head coach candidate, he has built an unbelievable culture, it sounds like, where it's a total buy-in from everybody in the program. Everybody in the state of Arkansas is behind these guys now. They believe that they're kind of a hard-working, rugged, grinded out kind of team. And here's one thing I heard Gary Danielson mention yesterday. He had all 11 fifth-year seniors. He talked 11 fifth-year seniors to come back this year for a sixth year because of the COVID. They got the free year of eligibility because of COVID. All 5 of them, all 11 of them, fifth-year guys came back and are playing for a sixth year. So he has a veteran-laden team of the guys that are there.
It makes such a big difference. And that's a great point, Jason. And look, teams that weren't under the gun in terms of scholarship numbers, if they weren't under the 85,
right,
and they can add those super seniors on top of that. For example, if they were a true 85 and they have those 11 super seniors, are basically operating with 96 scholarship guys.
Right.
You know what Tennessee has? Tennessee has 78 counting super seniors.
Wow.
Like they're under and they're counting super seniors and they're only at 78.
Right.
Which and that's a big difference. Talking about almost 20 scholarship players difference.
That's where the depth and competition.
100%. So it's a huge advantage. So and then you mentioned the key, and that's the culture for them. They believe in him. He's likable. And just really impressed by what they're doing. Now, Georgia, obviously, they're as good as it gets defensively in the country. As long as they leave JT Daniels in there and they don't try to go yo-yo a quarterback, they're a threat to Alabama too. Now, they're that good on what they did to Vanderbilt.
Georgia, but I'll say this: the reason this game could be semi-competitive is because Georgia's not a juggernaut on offense. They're good, but they're not great. So if Barry Odom can keep his team in the game and get that game to the fourth quarter in Athens, you never know.
No, absolutely. And look, if they had not been already in a slugfest, then I think this would be even more dangerous for Georgia. But that Clemson game with all the hype, it was a one-possession game throughout. and Clemson's obviously not as good as they were thought to be at the time, but Georgia's been challenged a little bit
Yes.
already. So I think that will pay dividends in this game should Arkansas have a fast start.
Let's head to Clemson. I want to get a couple national stories. Oklahoma and Clemson struggles, especially Clemson. Let's go to Clemson first. Nobody thought they'd have 2 losses in September. I mean, the offense has just been stagnant. There's been no continuity. I don't know if DJ Ugalele is not as good as we thought he was, or if it's just a whole picture of the offense, but lots of struggles in Clemson, South Carolina.
Man, Jason, you don't get that kind of drop off without multiple things. I know it's the easy thing to do. I'm not saying you're doing this, but it's easy for people to say, it's this guy, it's this. It's never one thing.
Right.
For you to have that kind of drop off, there's multiple things in place. It's the quarterback and not playing loose like he did when he came in for Trevor Lawrence last year, when he looked so relaxed and just let it go. He didn't have the talent around him that he did. He did get Justin Ross, or super potential first-round pick receiver back, but I don't know that he is back to what he was. They don't have that elite back that they did in Travis Etienne. So in their offensive line is a little shakier than it has been also. So then that changes how a kid reacts in the moment when he doesn't have guys to sort of help bail him out and help him feel relaxed and just let it go. And then I'm not sure if that coaching staff has been coaching him or that team to their strengths, or figure out things that they can do better than others. Sometimes you want to stick to your playbook and just give them the confidence to see how it goes, and it doesn't work out. But man, and it's impacting them on the defensive side too, because they haven't been quite as stout after looking so good against Georgia. So,
and they've been ravaged by injury. They had some injury issues to their key players, especially on defense.
Yeah, and that D line, especially littered with 5 stars, that was supposed to be as dominant a unit as we saw, and they were that good against Georgia, but it's taken its toll after that. So really disappointing. I mean, this is going to be a test for Dabo. People are going to want to see, all right, everything's been easy for you because of all this talent. What are you going to do now when things get difficult for you? Are you going to do like some of those disappointing USC teams did a number of years ago, where everyone would think, oh, preseason national champs, they lose 2 or 3 games in the regular season, but then at the end they play so well, they were ascending so much, you thought, man, no one wanted to play them. They might be one of the best teams in the country, despite a few losses. We'll see if they have that kind of turnaround late in the year.
That's right. All right. One more ACC note, then I'll get you out of here. One more thing. What a disaster the ACC has turned into. They thought Carolina and Clemson were going to be the 2 elite teams. Both of them now with 2 losses. Both of them are out of any kind of national championship hunt. And really, they're both out of neither may not even make the ACC championship. You got NC State playing really well. You got Virginia Tech playing okay. You know, just your thoughts on the ACC probably going to be out of the mix in the playoff.
Yeah, because look, it's been like you mentioned, the best teams are underperforming. I mean, your most consistent team has been Wake Forest.
Yeah.
So, I mean, good luck trotting them out there. I'm not saying they're not playing really well, but good luck from a rating standpoint, from a playoff committee standpoint, and putting them side by side with teams with a loss that have a track record.
Right. Not going to happen. That ain't going to happen.
I mean, even some of the other teams that are doing well, Virginia Tech has been inconsistent. They have
NC State might be the team that, from a conference perspective, could win the conference.
Yeah, but then they looked terrible against Mississippi State. I thought I picked them to win that game, and they were horrible. But then they bounced back against Clemson. Boston College is another undefeated team. That was a nice win over an okay Missouri team, not a great Missouri team, but hey, they're 4-0.
Right.
And I saw Pitt with my own two eyes, and I thought Pitt was a decent team, not an elite team, a decent team.
Right.
And they go and lose to Western Michigan the week after that.
Right.
I mean, Georgia Tech has looked horrible, but then they had the win last week over North Carolina. North Carolina is as big a surprise for me as there is in the country in underperforming. With Todd Chandler, the former Tennessee running back, Sam Howell. I mean, I just thought that they would be so much better. We talked to Mac Brown in the offseason too in an interview. Just in Miami, I'm not, because Miami, they underachieve every year, and I just don't buy that. But you're right. It is a mess. I don't see a path for them to get in at all.
Maybe one of the biggest games of the week coming up. We got Cincinnati, who's kind of that outside that non-power 5 team, heads to South Bend. The Irish with a big win over the weekend against Wisconsin. You know, they've been I won't say skating by, but up until the Wisconsin game, they've been kind of squeaking by a little bit. A big win at Wisconsin on the neutral field up in Chicago. This is Cincinnati's chance. If you want to get in the national title hunt, you got to win this game if you're Luke Fickell.
Absolutely. And, you know, they have a win over a pretty decent Indiana team already. So, you know, you start stacking those up. That's where you can really make some hay in that committee room when they're comparing resumes and things like that. If you beat one team and then your conference schedule isn't that great, that's different. But man, what an opportunity for Cincinnati. Love their quarterback. I think they have moxie. Big fan of Luke Fickell. This might be it for him at Cincinnati.
Yeah,
there might be somebody throwing a lot of millions at him after this one, especially if they were able to beat Notre Dame.
Yep.
I think Notre Dame is going to be a little bit too good for them at the line of scrimmage, though.
Right.
They're not overly flashy, but man, terrific at the line of scrimmage. They always put players into the league, and you know they could run the ball. You know, Cohn's availability is is a factor. I don't know where they stand in terms of his health, but man, Kyron Williams is a stud running back. And they're so good at the line of scrimmage. I still give Notre Dame the edge in that one, but I also wouldn't be shocked because Cincinnati has so much confidence and a lot to play for.
And give Brian Kelly credit. He just became the all-time winningest coach at Notre Dame. He's done a sneaky great job at Notre Dame. People, you know, you think Notre Dame, he's done a hell of a job the last 7-8 years at Notre Dame to get them back into the national relevance as far as the playoffs and all that stuff. Last thing, I'll get you out of here. Yep. What do you think the scuttlebutt, the rumor mill is about USC? Who do you like in the USC coaching vacancy?
Wow. I think it's probably going to be someone, not one of these big names. USC seems to always be connected with big names, Urban Meyer, Bob Stoops, go on and on. You know, people are like, hey, maybe Kellen Moore, the Cowboys, go to USC. Eric Bieniemy. I mean, he's on and on with the big names. My guess is based on that athletic department that they're not going to go with a flashy name. I think they're going to go with someone, you know, maybe that there's a relationship with the athletic director. Some, you know, maybe a USC tie that doesn't have the long track record, but I don't know exactly who that is. But I think everyone's chasing their tail with all of these big names because you want to match the flashy big name program with a lot of history with the big names and see how that power play goes. I'm going
to throw a name. Any chance your boy Lane Kiffin gets an opportunity to go back there? He's matured. You know, he seems to have righted himself, you know, off the field and all that stuff. Any chance that happens?
I don't think so. Obviously, Lane would know, but I think he's matured. I think he's still smart. I think if he does leave for another gig or a bigger gig, I don't see him going back into that same situation where he was before and what the school did to him once before. Just because your ex-girlfriend wants to get back together with you doesn't mean that you automatically have to go. Especially if you have options and you're looking good and feeling good. So That's the best way I can put it. I don't see Lane 2.0 or 3.0 at USC. I just don't see that going down.
Well, brother, you're looking good and you're feeling good. 99.1 The Sports Animal. Check out Vince online. He hosts. He does some high school football in the Knoxville area. Keep up the great work, my man. Tell everybody where they can find you guys on Twitter and where all your content is.
Yeah, I appreciate it. X's don't come calling. I got options. Not as many as Lane. Oh, let me put it that way. Appreciate it. At Vince Sports on Twitter, VINCE Sports. And then our website, man, we have so much on Tennessee. Vols coming off of the loss to the Florida Gators, looking to bounce back against Missouri this weekend. And these are the kind of games that's going to determine what Tennessee season, how it's going to be judged, not Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. These are the games that are winnable that we'll find out more about Heupel and the staff. So tons on the Vols. I do SEC football predictions with the spread and straight up, NFL predictions with the spread and straight up. Tons of content in the blog section, 991thesportsanimal.com, and on my YouTube channel as well. Great to be on.
I know you're a Tampa guy, so give me a quick Tom Brady, Buccaneer, Patriots.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. I actually picked, no offense to our guy TJ Reeves, I thought this is sort of another perfect storm situation where I picked the Rams to win last week.
Yep.
But look, they're absolutely going to bounce back. I think they're going to win in New England, and they're going to be just fine. That whole undefeated talk, I think, was silliness. They're going to have one of the best records in the league when it's all said and done in the regular season and be right there for the Super Bowl. But undefeated stuff, there's not that much of a gap with them and everyone else. So they'll be absolutely fine. Going to make sure Gronk is healthy, but Bucks will bounce back against the Patriots.
All right, Vince, we'll keep up the great work, my man. We'll talk to you later in the football season, and have a great weekend.
All right, you too. Thanks, Chase.
Thanks, buddy.